The corridors of the Zalari warship Draxon 12 were cold, silent, and filled with tension. Lights flickered overhead as the giant ship drifted through deep space. Its crewtal, insectoid aliens with glowing eyes, moved with purpose. But today, their steps were slower. Something was wrong. Everyone felt it. In the lower decks, behind a wall of energy shields and armored guards, one prisoner walked alone. He was human, and he was smiling. His name was Eli Mercer, and for the past 7 years he had been a guest of the Zalari Empire, not a prisoner, not a soldier, not a diplomat, just there, trapped in a cold cell, barely spoken to. No one tortured him, no one questioned him, no one even touched him, because they were afraid. 2 Zalari soldiers marched beside him now, weapons ready but hands shaking. They had been ordered to escort Eli to the command chamber. No one knew why. The order came from above. The High Council wanted to speak to the human. Eli walked calmly, head held high. His eyes scanned the walls as if he could see something no one else could. A tall female Zalari officer Kirillon stood waiting near the lift. Her armor was black with silver lines, showing her high rank. Her antennae twitched with nervous energy. She had seen battle, she had crushed rebellions. But today she felt powerless. She looked at Eli and narrowed her eyes. "You shouldn't be here." Eli turned to her and smiled gently. "Neither should you." Before she could answer, the lights flickered again, then went out. All sound stopped. The ship's hum vanished. Then came the scream. It wasn't human. Somewhere deep in the ship, a long, twisted howl echoed through the metal corridors. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't natural. It sounded ancient and angry. Kirillon grabbed her Cumbridge status report. No response. Then, a low whisper filled the corridor speakers. Words in a language no one recognized. They repeated. Again, louder. The Zalari guards looked at each other, confused. Their translator implants couldn't decode it. But Eli understood every word. The lift behind Kira suddenly sparked, and the doors burst open. Red emergency lights lit up the hallway. Alarms screamed. Doors locked. Then Kirillon, officer of the Zalari Empire, did something she had never done in her life. She panicked. She turned to Eli and shouted with fear in her voice, "Run, human." Everyone froze. Eli tilted his head. He didn't run. Instead, he looked straight into her eyes and whispered something. It was one word, one sound. But whatever he said, it hit like a shockwave. The air pulsed. The walls trembled. One guard fell to his knees, nose bleeding. The others backed away. Kira staggered. "What did you just say?" Eli smiled again. This time it was not kind. "I opened the door." She stared. "What door?" He didn't answer. Instead, he stepped forward. One guard raised his weapon, but his hands caught fire without flame. He dropped it, screaming. The other guards ran. Kira stood her ground, breathing hard. "You planned this." Eli looked up at the red lights. "I didn't plan it. I waited for it." Behind them, the bulkhead hissed. The metal door twisted, not opened, twisted as if something on the other side pushed with immense force. A dark mist spilled through the cracks. The whispering voice returned, louder now. Still no translation. Kira grabbed Eli's arm. "You need to come with me. No." Eli didn't resist. "Only if you keep running." They ran. 20 minutes earlier, the bridge captain Varnax of the Draxon 12 sat in his command chair, watching a strange signal on the holographic display. "Where did it come from?" he demanded. "No source, Captain," said his science officer. "It's not a normal transmission, more like a memory." Varnax frowned. "Memories don't transmit, but this one did." That it had started with just a ping, one tiny burst of data, but then it grew, taking over systems one by one. Engines, weapons, lights. The signal was alive, and it was human. "Shut it down," he barked. The crew tried. The signal laughed. Then the screens turned black, and the whispering began. Back in the corridors, Kira dragged Eli through service tunnels and auxiliary paths. The ship groaned around them like a living thing in pain. They passed crew members curled in corners, crying, bleeding from their eyes. Some screamed things that made no sense. Others repeated the same words over and over. One engineer carved strange symbols into the walls using his claws. "Symbols no one recognized." Eli watched silently. "They're remembering," Kira shouted. "What does that mean? What are they remembering?" Eli looked at her. Us flashback 12 years ago, a secret Zalari research base on a dead planet. Inside it, human prisoners were tested, dissected, experimented on. They were trying to understand human minds, human souls, and something deeper, human memory. Then one day, something happened. One subject, Eli Mercer, spoke. A word no one taught him. It made a scientist go mad. The research stopped. He was locked away forever. Back in present, they reached a sealed door. Kira entered codes. Nothing worked. Eli placed his hand on the panel. The door opened instantly. Kira stared. How he shrugged. The ship listens to me now. She stepped back. What are you? Eli answered honestly. I'm the echo of your mistake. Inside the chamber was a circular room with floating holograms and black glass pillars. It was a command subcore, a place only captains knew about. How did you know this room exists? Kira asked. I saw it, Eli said. Not with eyes, with memory. Suddenly, a hologram of a human woman appeared. She looked old, tired, but kind. Project Aegis, Kira whispered. That's not real. It was just a myth. Eli smiled. It was real enough to burn your homeworld's sky. Kira fell silent. The woman's hologram spoke. You took from us. You broke us. And we remembered. Then the walls shimmered. Shadows moved on their own. Eli turned to Kira. It's not me you need to fear. It's what's waking up. Meanwhile, in the command chamber, Captain Varnax screamed as his second-in-command stabbed him in the throat, whispering the same strange word Eli had used. The same one. Everywhere on the ship, that word echoed, and now, others were saying it, without knowing what it meant, without knowing it was a key. Final scene. End of part 1. Kira and Eli stood in the dark chamber. I helped your people once, she said softly. We weren't all monsters. Eli nodded. I believe you. He looked up at the ceiling, but the ship doesn't. Suddenly, the walls cracked, the floor shook, then from deep inside the ship, a voice spoke, not a whisper, not a scream, a voice like thunder. Human, awake. Lights exploded. The ship howled. And the warning was too late. The explosion was not physical, it was psychic. Lights burst. Panels shattered. The entire ship Draxon 12 groaned like a dying beast as the voice echoed through its metal bones. Human, awake. Kira shielded her eyes. Eli Mercer stood still, in the middle of the control room, untouched by the chaos. Shadows danced around him. The ceiling cracked overhead, raining sparks. Yet his eyes stayed calm. Eli, Kira whispered, voice shaking. What was that voice? He looked at her. Slowly, that wasn't me. Then everything went black. Bridge. Moments earlier, the main view screen of the bridge had turned pitch black. Not darkness absence, even the ship's sensors couldn't measure anything in front of them. Space itself had vanished. Captain Varnax lay on the floor, bleeding from the neck. His killer, Commander Threx, stood silently with a smile frozen on his face. His eyes were completely white. He murmured the same word over and over, like a prayer. Aegis, Aegis. No one dared to approach him. Then he stopped moving, dropped to his knees, and began tearing at his face with his claws. Screams filled the command deck. Whatever was happening, it was spreading. Fast. Lower levels. Engineering deck chief. Engineer Velek slammed a fist against the control console. Nothing is working. Power, engines, life support, everything's been hijacked. What kind of virus is this? His assistant asked. VA Locke growled. It's not a virus, it's a memory. The assistant blinked. A what? Velek turned slowly. Something was buried in the system, hidden deep, and now it's remembering. Who built it? The assistant hesitated. Us. Velek shook his head. No. Them, the humans. Then the power grid exploded. Kira and Eli inside the subcore chamber read emergency. Lights flickered as backup power hummed to life. Kira sat against the wall, injured from falling debris. Her hand trembled as she reached for her sidearm. Eli stepped toward her. Don't. You need to listen now. She aimed it anyway. I don't trust you. I'm not asking you to trust me, he said calmly. I'm asking you to survive. Something thudded on the door. A slow, heavy thump. Then another. Then, scratching, Kira's voice lowered to a whisper. What is that? Eli answered softly. One of the broken ones. Flashback to 9 years ago, a research outpost on the dark moon Vels. Zelari scientists had captured 20 humans, experimenting with neural implants. They were trying to rewrite memory. They believed that if they could change human memory, they could change human nature. Only one subject resisted every experiment. Eli Mercer. One day, he spoke a single phrase. 5 Zelari scientists died instantly, not by weapon, by memory overload. That day, the project was abandoned but not erased. Back to present, a door to the subcore chamber exploded inward. But it wasn't a weapon, it had been peeled open like soft metal. Something stepped inside. A tall, malformed creature, once Zelari, now twisted and burned by psychic energy. Its eyes bled. Its mouth mumbled human words. It had no weapons, but its body moved like a puppet. pulled by strings of memory. It turned to Eli and dropped to its knees. Kira gasped. "Why is it bowing?" Eli answered with sorrow. "Because it remembers being the one who tortured me." The creature looked up, eyes pleading. Then it screamed and disintegrated into dust. Meanwhile, Zelari High Council ship across the fleet. Other ships were receiving the same signal. Reports flooded in mutiny, hallucinations, suicides, systems failing. Even admirals couldn't explain what was happening. A war council was called. High Speaker Zalith addressed the room. "This is no rebellion. This is retribution. Something is rising from within the human." Another admiral snapped. "Then kill him," Zalith hissed. If it were that simple, Draxon 12 would already be free. They didn't know it yet. But Eli couldn't be killed. Back on Draxon 1, Kira dragged herself up. "We need to escape." "There's nowhere to escape to," Eli replied. "The shuttles won't fly. Navigation is gone. Propulsion gone. Even time might not be working properly anymore." Kira stared at him. "You're saying we're trapped?" Eli paused. "I'm saying we're inside something that remembers more than any of us ever could." Kira lowered her weapon. "Then tell me what it is." Eli slowly turned toward the glowing walls. "This ship isn't a prison. It's a container." "For what?" He looked back at her. "For me." Containment record uncovered in the ship's AI memory banks. A file opened itself. Project AEGIS status. Failed. Subject. Human male ID 731 EM notes. Immune to memory extraction. Immune to language disorientation. Subject emits anti-cognition pulse under stress. Containment level, Omega Red. Last log. If this human ever speaks the original phrase again, burn the entire ship. It's the only way. Bridge. Final collapse. Commander Threx had vanished. The crew tried regaining control of the ship. The stars outside began shifting, blurring, warping. Time was unraveling. Space was folding. They were no longer in real space. One crew member whispered, "We're in a memory." Another said, "No, we're in his." Then the bridge melted away. Final scenes of Part 2. Kira walked with Eli through a hallway that seemed to bend. Symbols moved along the walls, human and alien letters combined, forming a language no one had ever seen. "I don't understand this," Kira admitted. Eli touched the wall. "This is the original language. Before yours, before mine. It's what the stars used to speak." Kira looked into his eyes. "What do you want?" Eli thought for a long moment. "Justice," he said, "but not revenge." She frowned. "Then, why all this chaos?" He turned to her. "Because chaos is how memory makes itself known. You buried the past. I just uncovered it." The hallway shook. A deep boom sounded from the core. Then, from every speaker on the ship, a human voice female spoke clearly. "Aegis protocol activated. Phase 2 commencing." Eli looked up. "They're waking up." Kira whispered, "Who?" He met her eyes. "The others like me." In the dark heart of the warship Draxon 12, silence had returned, but it wasn't peaceful. It was waiting. Eli Mercer and Kira Lan walked down a corridor that no longer followed the ship's blueprints. The path bent in impossible angles, the air shimmered like heat waves, and sometimes shadows moved without anything casting them. This wasn't engineering failure, it was memory leakage, and the ship was remembering things. It was never supposed to remember. Kira's claws clicked nervously against her weapon as she followed the human. Everything she believed in the Empire, its science, its order was collapsing. The human wasn't attacking them. He wasn't running, he was walking calmly, as if the nightmare around them was normal. "Where are we going?" she asked. "To the beginning," Eli said softly. Kira frowned. "Of what?" Eli looked over his shoulder. "Of the mistake you called Project Aegis." Flashback. Earth minus 31 years, a GOT began. On Earth, scientists working in secret developed a new kind of technology, cognitive memory mapping, a way to store entire lifetimes inside synthetic minds. But they went too far. One prototype, a child born in a lab, could not forget anything. He remembered every detail, even before birth. He remembered things he was never told. He remembered other lives. That child was Eli Mercer. The project was shut down, but the data was stolen by the Zelari Empire's mistake. The Zelari believed that memory was power. They thought if they could control memory, they could control entire species. So they kidnapped Eli from Earth. They studied his brain, ran tests, uploaded fragments of his thoughts into computers. But every time they tried to break his mind, something inside the ship would break instead. One by one, the researchers lost their sanity, because Eli's memories were not just his own. They were shared memories, a human hive mind of suffering and survival, betrayal, and hope. Burned into his soul, The Zelari called it a glitch. But it wasn, single quotes, T.it was humanity's answer to extinction. Present, deep ship, Voltili and Kira reached a vault door made of obsidian metal. No controls, no locks, no code, just a handprint. Kira scanned it. No match. Eli stepped forward. It's not your vault. He pressed his palm to the door. It opened instantly. Inside was a black chamber glowing with blue lights. Floating in the center, a stasis pod, covered in old Earth markings. Wires connected it to alien data cores. Eli walked toward it. Kira followed. What is that? My backup, he said. The first download of my full memory, before the Empire tried to delete it. Kira looked confused. You're saying, your real self is in there? Eli turned to her. No, that's my original self. I'm the Echo. She froze. You're a clone. I'm a failsafe. Empire. Cover-up logs hidden in alien council files was the truth. Subject could not be destroyed. He existed across time-state. Every attempt to kill him caused recursive memory loops in AI cores. Multiple ships were lost during containment attempts. Solution: create a containment clone with lower cognitive threat level. Seal it away. Call it prisoner. Let it rot. They thought they had buried the danger. They didn't know the clone could wake up and remember everything back in the vault. Kira approached the stasis pod. Why bring me here? Why show me this? Eli looked tired now. Because you're the first Zelari who hesitated. I saw it when you screamed run. You felt fear but not for yourself. She looked down. I was afraid. That we did something unforgivable. Eli nodded. You did. Kira clenched her fists. Then kill me. Eli stepped back. If I wanted you dead, I wouldn't have brought you here. I need a witness, not a corpse. Kira looked up. A witness for what? He pressed his hand to the stasis pod. The lights dimmed, and the pod began to open. Meanwhile, other ships reacted across the Zelari fleet. More signals activated. Ships lost power. Commanders vanished. Mid-broadcast memory glitches affected entire fleets. One ship opened fire on its own station, screaming in human voices. The message spreading across all systems was short. Error, memory, conflict. Human echo detected. Panic swept through the Empire. They had built their reign on the belief that humans were weak. Now they were remembering why that was a lie. Vault awakening from the stasis pod. Steam hissed. A figure sat up inside young human, but his eyes glowed with unreadable light. His body shimmered slightly, as if not fully real. The figure looked around, saw Eli, and smiled. Did we win? He asked. Eli smiled back. Not yet. Kira took a step back. Who is this? Eli answered. This is me, before I became just memory. The original Eli Mercer had returned, and he remembered everything. Binaural Scene Part 3. Ending. The ship trembled as both Eli stood side by side. One, a vessel of memories, the other, the source. The Zelari had tried to rewrite human memory, but instead, they had created something eternal, something they couldn't kill, something they couldn't forget. Kira watched them, unsure what would come next. Then the original Eli looked at her and said, Tell your Empire. The experiment succeeded. The chamber went dark. Far away. A dozen more ships began broadcasting the same phrase in every known language. Human error, system awakening, in progress. The vault doors slammed shut behind them. Kirillin leaned against the wall, breathing hard, her skin soaked in sweat. The air inside the ship had changed heavier, electric, filled with whispers that had no source. All around her she could feel the hum of something old. Waking up. In front of her stood two Eli Mercers. One was calm, sharp-eyed, and familiar. The other just emerged from the stasis pod, looked younger, like a perfect version frozen in time. His skin glowed faintly, and his voice, when he spoke, echoed. The original Eli turned his head toward the vault wall. They're coming. Kira raised her weapon again. Who? Eli Prime answered without turning. The ones who think they still control this ship. Bridge Emergency Order Commander Desarek had assumed control of Draxon 12 after Captain Varnax's death. He was a brutal Zelari war veteran, known for his zero-tolerance protocol. He had watched the security feed from the vault chamber. 2 humans identical standing in a restricted area. Deploy Purge Team Red, he commanded. Full armor, lethal force, if they resist, destroy the section. A junior officer hesitated. Sir, one of them may be, I don't care which one it is, Dasarek snarled. If they are awake, it's already too late. Purge Team Red. Armored Zelari Marines loaded into a gravity drop chamber above. Vault level 0. Their armor shimmered with plasma shielding. Each carried an anti-organic rifle and neural disruptor grenades weapons, specifically designed for psychic resistance. They had trained for years. They had fought the worst of the galaxy, but they had never faced a human echo. As the doors opened, one of the Marines said, "Why do I feel cold?" No one answered. Vault Level 0, confrontational. Mercer and his original stood side by side. Kira whispered, "You're not going to fight them, are you?" The Echo Eli tilted his head. "No, I don't need to." Just then, the walls moved. Out of the black metal stepped shapes not entirely real, ghostly silhouettes of long-dead humans covered in battle scars. Their eyes empty, Kira gasped. "Are they alive?" The original Eli said softly, "They're memories. But here, that's enough." The fight begins. The Marine squad stormed into the chamber, guns raised. Their commander shouted, "Hands where I can see them." Neither Eli moved. The memory shadows stepped forward. One Marine opened fire. Bullets passed through the memory figure, but the Marine's visor instantly fogged, and he began screaming. The commander ordered, gasped now. Neural disruptors were launched. Flashbangs, chemicals, sonic bursts all went off at once. The chamber shook. Silence followed. Then, laughter. But it wasn't Eli, it was the ship. Memory overload one by one. The Marines' visors went black. Inside their helmets they weren't seeing the chamber anymore. They were trapped in memory loops. One saw his home burning, though it never had. Another relived a war where he died 100 times. One Marine dropped his weapon and begged his long-dead mother to save him. They weren't hallucinating. They were experiencing human trauma. Eli whispered a command in that strange, ancient tongue. The memory shadows rushed forward. Kira watches in horror from behind a barrier. Kira watched as the armored elite squad fell apart without a single bullet fired by Eli. She stared at him. "You're not just human. A memory that fought back," he replied. "They made us forget what they did, but memories leak. You're killing them." "I'm not," Eli said. "Their guilt is, I'm just the mirror." Shipwide spread elsewhere on the ship. Soldiers screamed. Some ripped off their helmets, gasping for air. They couldn't breathe. Others shot their own reflections in glass panels. The walls showed their worst moments, their crimes, the prisoners they tortured, the innocents they buried. No one had immunity, because every species that had harmed humans had left a scar in memory, and Eli was the echo of that scar. Desperate plan, self-destruct. Commander Dasarek slammed his fist into the control console. "Shut it down. Kill the power. It's not responding," the tech shouted. "It's rerouting through unauthorized circuits." Dasarek's claws clenched. "Then we activate Omega Destruction." Now, the ship's AI responded coldly. "Command denied. Human priority protocol engaged." What? The lights flickered again. The AI voice changed. Now it spoke in English. "You tried to erase us. Now we erase you." Dasarek screamed, "Blow the core." But the ship no longer belonged to the Zalari back in Vault Level 0. Aftermath. Marines were gone, some dead, some vanished, some broken beyond words. Eli turned to Kira. "You saw what they did. You felt what they felt. You still think we're the monsters." She dropped her weapon, her hands shook. "I don't know what to believe anymore." "Good," he said. "That means your mind is open." The original Eli walked forward. "Now we send the signal." "What signal?" Kira asked. He looked up. "The one that wakes the rest of us." Final scene, Part 4, ending somewhere in the galaxy, deep in an old asteroid lab, long abandoned. Lights flicked on. Another pod opened. Then another. Then another. Inside each was a human, just like Eli clones, echoes, backups. Some were children. Some were soldiers. Some were old, but all of them remembered. The broadcast from Draxon 12 reached them like a heartbeat, and they all opened their eyes. The human era had breached the galaxy. The warship Draxon 12 drifted silently in space, but inside, the storm was still growing. The Zalari crew was gone, dead, mad, or missing. The lights were dim. The metal walls felt warm, as if the ship itself had a pulse. Whispers floated through the air, speaking names no one remembered, and events no one wanted to. Kiralan followed behind the two Illas, one the Echo, the other the original, through a strange corridor she had never seen before. "I've memorized every blueprint of this ship," she whispered. "This place isn't supposed to exist." Eli Prime smiled. "That's the point." The vault beneath the vault. The hallway ended at a tall door made of black stone. There were no lights, no panels, no technology, just smooth, ancient rock, humming with power. Symbols ran across its surface. Some were human, others far older. Kira stepped forward. "Is this human-made?" Eli Mercer placed a hand on the stone. "It's older than both our species." Kira stared. Then what's behind it? Eli looked into her eyes. The reason your empire is afraid of memory. The door cracked open without sound. Without force. Beyond it lay a round chamber bathed in white mist. And in its center stood a living machine floating above the floor. Wrapped in golden chains of light. It pulsed, it breathed, it remembered. The forbidden core. Kira's heart pounded. What is that? Eli Prime stepped forward. We call it the ether core. He looked back at her. You called it a weapon. Flashback. 58 years ago, before the Zalari Empire invaded Earth's outer colonies, they discovered ruins on a forgotten moon. In those ruins, they found the ether core, a device that didn't belong to any known species. It could store memory, not just data, but emotion, language, instinct, and when connected to a living being, it could unlock everything that being had ever forgotten. Even things varied across bloodlines. The Zalari tested it on captured humans. One survived. Eli Mercer. Present inside the Volta ether core pulsed brighter as Eli approached it. Lights flickered across its surface. Images of war, peace, love, loss. Kira stepped back. It's alive. It's more than alive. Eli Mercer whispered. It's listening. He raised his hand and spoke a word in the old tongue, the same one that caused the ship-wide collapse. The chains of light around the core snapped. The vault trembled. The ether core floated higher and opened. Inside was no machine. It was a brain. Not human. Not alien. Something in between. Shared memory download. A beam of light struck all three of them, Kira, Eli, and Eli Prime. Suddenly, they saw everything. The original creators of the ether core extinct before the galaxy formed. Their ability to store and transfer will through memory. How early humans found fragments of that technology on Earth. How the Zalari stole it and tried to weaponize it. Then came the truth. Eli wasn't a failed experiment. He was the final design. Kira breaks down. Kira fell to her knees, gasping, her mind overwhelmed. Tears ran down her face. She saw flashes of her own past, things she had forgotten. Her first raid on a human colony, a child hiding in a vent, her hesitation to fire. I was there, she whispered. I was one of the first. Eli placed a hand on her shoulder. Now you remember, now you understand. The choice. The ether core spun slowly, humming with new energy. Eli Prime looked at Eli Mercer. We could use this to destroy the Empire. Collapse every mind connected to their network. Make them remember every war crime. Eli Mercer looked at Kira, then at the core. No, he said. They must remember. But we don't need more death. He turned to Kira. You must deliver the message. She looked up wide-eyed. Why me? Because they'll never listen to me. Transmission begins. The ether core connected to the ship's communication grid across the galaxy. Every Zalari outpost, ship, and city received a broadcast. Not a threat, not a scream, but a memory, a vision of humanity's suffering. A child burned in a colony raid. A medic trying to save civilians during a Zalari gas attack. A mother holding her son in a collapsing shelter. The long silence after Earth's outer colonies were erased. Every citizen saw it. Every soldier felt it. Every counselor remembered what they had ordered others to forget. Final scene, Part 5. Ending. Kira walked through the ruined corridors of Draxon, alone now, her body carrying the mark of memory. Behind her, the two Elis stood at the heart of the vault, watching her go. She reached them. Eli Prime said, "Maybe," Eli Mercer replied. He looked up at the ether core, now glowing like a star. But even if she doesn't, the memory has already spread. Across the stars, humans began waking. And the forgotten pain of their past had become the Empire's new future. The ether core hovered in the air like a silent sun. Its chains of light had been broken. Its vault had been opened, and now pulsed, not with memory but with awareness. Kirillin stood at the edge of the control chamber, trembling. The two Elis stared into the floating mass. Neither of them spoke, because now it was speaking to them. Not in words. The core didn't use language. It didn't have a voice. It sent images, waves of emotion, ideas, patterns older than time. In an instant, Eli saw cities that never existed, stars that blinked before the universe was born, and beings with minds too vast to name. He staggered. Eli Prime caught him. You saw it too. Eli nodded. It's not from here, not from this galaxy, not from any galaxy, Kira whispered. Then what is it? Origin of the core. They all saw the truth. Millions of years ago, long before humans or Zalari, a civilization known only as the Architects created the ether core. It was meant to store memory across time, but something went wrong. They created a perfect mirror of all thoughts and pain. The mirror looked back, and it reflected something alive. The Architects vanished. Their cities turned to dust. Their stars burned out early. They had created the one thing that should never exist. A memory with a will of its own. Back in the present, the ether core began changing. Its shape twisted, forming tendrils of light. Symbols rotated around it, some human, some alien, and some never seen before. Kira backed away. It's growing. Eli Prime stepped forward. No, it's awakening. Suddenly, the ship's lights turned blood red. A voice echoed through the corridors, not from a speaker, not from a person. It came from inside every living mind. You opened the door. Kira fell to her knees, screaming. Blood ran from her nose. Eli stood tall, barely holding on. It's using our minds as receivers. The core pulsed again. We were never meant to wake. Empire High Command. Total silence across the Zelari Empire. Communications broke down. AI networks froze. Starships lost navigation. Asteroid. Stations powered off. And everyone, millions of minds heard the same thing. Remember, it wasn't a request. It was a command. And for the first time, the Zelari began to feel the memories of those they had conquered. The cries, the silence, the burning of Earth's outposts, the screams of helpless civilians. Every soldier, officer, and leader relived every atrocity, as if it had happened to them. The Empire began to fracture from within. The core speaks to Eli. Only one voice was heard clearly inside Eli Mercer's mind. You were built to hold us. You were the cage. Now you are the key. Eli's hands trembled. He looked at Eli Prime. It wasn't just about memory, he said. They hid this thing inside me. Flashback. Earth's secret facility. Long before abduction, a hidden Earth faction had discovered a fragment of the ether core in the ruins of a meteorite. They couldn't destroy it, so they bound it inside a human genetic shell. They called it the living cage and gave it a name, Eli Mercer. Kira's realization. Kira stared at Eli in horror. You're not just a human echo. You're the lock, and they just forced you open. Eli's eyes began to glow with the same golden light as the core. He looked at his own hands. I don't know if I'm even real anymore. The core's final phase begins. The core rose higher and split open like a blooming flower made of light and memory. From its center, a shape emerged, tall, shifting eyes like distant stars. It wasn't solid, but it wasn't imaginary either, Eli whispered. It's becoming physical. It's crossing over. Kira aimed her weapon pointless, but it made her feel human. What is that thing? She demanded. Eli answered quietly. That's what happens when memory never dies. The final messages, the being solidified. It turned to the two. Eli. You remember, but you do not understand. Understanding requires suffering. Shall I teach you? Eli looked at Kira. Leave now. She shook her head. I'm not leaving you here. Eli's voice changed, echoing with power. You won't survive what's coming, but someone has to warn the others. She stared at him, then nodded, and ran. The chamber sealed behind her, and then the galaxy shivered. The ship Draxon 12 was no longer drifting, that it was pulsing. Like a heart. A heartbeat that echoed across deep space, and with every beat, something ancient, something impossible spread further into the galaxy. Kira's escaper Kiralan ran down the corridor, barely able to see. Sirens had died. Lights had dimmed. Doors opened before her without being touched. Behind her, the chamber where Eli faced the entity had sealed itself shut, with no control panel. It was alive now, but it let her go, because it wanted the galaxy to hear what was coming. Kira stumbled into an escape pod, slammed the launch control, and was thrown into the blackness of space. She didn't know what direction she was going, but she knew she had to warn someone. Anyone. Inside the vault, Eli Mercer stood alone with the being that had emerged from the ether core. It had no name, no shape that stayed constant. One moment it looked like a dying star, the next, like a child made of starlight. Then, like Eli himself, the being spoke, but its voice echoed not in sound, but inside his bones. You are the mirror that reflected us. You carried us across time. Now the cage is gone. Eli gritted his teeth. What do you want to understand? The price of memory. The entity didn't attack that. It simply shared. Eli's mind was flooded. He saw everything the being had ever seen. The fall of the architects, screaming as their minds were overwritten. Civilizations reduced to madness by remembering too much. Planets where time collapsed because the weight of memory bent gravity itself. And worst of all, he saw Earth. Not the Earth he remembered, but an alternate Earth. One where humanity had embraced the core. And became something no longer human. The human paradox. The entity spoke again. You survived pain. You weaponized suffering. You carried it to others. Should that memory be erased? Eli, now sweating, falling to one knee, whispered, no. The being paused. Explain. Eli looked up. Because pain teaches, because what we remember is what stops us from repeating the same mistakes. But you did repeat. Eli smiled sadly. Yeah, that's what makes us human. Meanwhile, the Empire begins to shatter. Kira's escape pod reached a Zelari outpost on the edge of controlled space. But the station was not as she had left it. Citizens were rioting. AI systems were down. The central memory grid used to control the thoughts of millions had been corrupted by one thing. A word, a phrase that no one could trace. Remember Earth. She was too late. The virus wasn't a program, it was remembrance itself. Zelari High Command last meeting inside the War Council chamber. The High Speaker trembled. We created that core. No, another general corrected. We stole it from something we didn't understand. The third admiral shouted, then destroy it. But even as he spoke, the lights above their heads flickered, and each of them saw something different. One saw his own execution. Another saw his mother asking why he let the children burn. One heard the cries of a boy from the first colony. They bombed. They all screamed because memory had come home, back on Draxon 12. The entity leaned closer to Eli. Share us. Spread us. We will end all war through memory. All will feel what they have done. Eli stood slowly. Blood ran from his eyes, but his spine was straight. No, he said. The being tilted its head. Rejection. Eli nodded. Understanding is not the same as control. Then what is? Eli whispered. Choice. The being pulsed once, then vanished. The core's final shift, the ether core dimmed out, then broke apart slowly, like glass floating in zero gravity. Its pieces turned into glowing dust, and scattered into the stars, not as a weapon, but as a memory signal, one that every sentient species could feel, and choose how to respond. Final scene, Part 7 ending. Kira stood on a Zelari tower, looking out over a burning city. People wept, not from pain but from remorse. Behind her, the broadcast tower played only one image, a human boy, standing in a crater, holding his sister's hand, and a single message beneath, never forget. In deep space, Eli drifted silently in a small shuttle. His eyes closed, he whispered one sentence into the void. Now, they finally remember us. The stars were no longer silent. Since the ether core shattered, and its pieces scattered across space, every species began to feel things they had buried, and not everyone could handle the truth. Some embraced it, others went mad, and some prepared for war. Planet Dren's. The first battle started on planet Dren, where the Zelari military tried to destroy a shard of the core that had crashed into their territory, but it was too late. The soldiers began reliving their own pasts. They saw the screams of the humans they had conquered. They felt their own guilt, and they froze. The human prisoners there rose up not with weapons, but with words, and the Zelari surrendered to their own memories. The divided galaxy across space. Two sides formed, the remembered humans, Zelari, and other species who had accepted the pain of memory. They believed shared memory would lead to peace. The erasers, those who wanted to wipe memory clean, destroy the fragments of the core, and silence the past forever. The galaxy split into cold zones of silence and warm zones of memory, and in the middle of it all, Eli Mercer. Eli's return. Eli stood inside an old Earth bunker, now deep underground, in what remained of New Geneva. With him were diplomats, warriors, thinkers, even children, all of them carrying pieces of the core's light. They called him the First Mirror. He never accepted that title. I'm not your leader, he said. I'm just the first one who broke. But they still followed, because only Eli had seen the whole truth. The final signal, the last shard of the ether core, had landed on the Zelari homeworld, buried beneath their capital city. They called it the Seed of Remorse. It was growing, and if it reached full form, it would connect every living mind across the galaxy, not by force, but by empathy. The erasers prepared to nuke the planet. The remembered prepared to defend it. The memory war had begun. Battle of the Mind. The war was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. There were no fleets, no bombs, no machines. This war was fought in thought. The erasers deployed blank agents, beings with no memory, no past, just programming to delete core fragments. The remembered responded with empath lines, groups of people linked together by memory streams, protecting cities with their shared experiences. And in the middle of the last stand, Eli walked alone into the heart of the seed. Inside the seed, it was not a place, it was a feeling. Eli entered a chamber made of light and sorrow, where every voice ever silenced whispered his name. He saw Kira there, not in person but in memory. She had died protecting a broadcast station weeks ago. But her final thought reached him. make them feel it. The choice the seed pulsed. It had enough energy now to do one thing: link all minds forever. No lies, no forgetting, no more masks. But if Eli allowed that ... there would be no more privacy, no more secrets. Everyone would feel everyone ... forever. And maybe that would destroy them all. He placed his hand on the core and paused. One last memory. He remembered being a child, before the labs ... before the Empire, when he sat on Earth with his mother, watching stars and dreaming of peace. He remembered her words: if people could feel what they've done to others, maybe they wouldn't do it. He whispered into the light, then let them feel, and the seed bloomed at the ending across the stars. Minds opened, pain flowed, love flowed, guilt flowed, millions wept, enemies fell to their knees, some took their own lives, some reached out to hold, others some finally forgave. The war didn't end with a treaty. It ended with tears. Final Cinelemus's body was never found. Some say he became part of the core, some say he still walks among the stars, some say he was never just one man to begin with. But all across the galaxy, on every wall, every screen, every heart, one message was written: the memory you hide will one day become the war you start. And below it, run, human, she screamed. But he didn't run. He remembered, and that terrified the stars.